am sure sports. You know me there, from coast to coast representing. I mean, I say this is righteous representing for Omar. You don't know, come get the sports over here from near and far. Boy. Me say I am sure sports, one thing me sure about. When me say sure, that me not doubt. Come get your sports, get it over here. Come subscribe, repost and share. I am sure sports, one thing me sure about. When me say sure, that me not doubt. Come get your sports, get it over here. Come subscribe, repost and share. If me not sure, that me not say it. Know who score, that me not say it. Never know no game play, that me not say it. If me never see no game, me no know who play. For your sports news, better come over here so. For your soccer news, then come over here so. If you don't love sports, still come over here so. For the day done, you are gonna love over here so.
So when it comes on to behavior concerning football, Jamaica is decent. I am sure that if we can get all of these things done, set in place by the end of April, it gives us enough time before the World Cup campaign. Not afraid of no Brazil, no Argentina with these crapper players. We are good enough. Remember to like, subscribe, share. Listen, comment, let me know what your thoughts are.
Trick Jerk Marinade gives your meats and vegetables authentic Jamaican jerk flavor. The spices are directly from Jamaica. Spices like jerk seasoning, allspice, Scotch bonnet pepper, fresh scallions, thyme, ginger, and garlic. The key ingredients to a great jerk marinade. 0% sugar and low in sodium. You want to try it?
Made up of 18 Jamaican herbs and spices. Add delicious, bold flavor to your next grilling experience. Flavoring sauce, a marinade, basting, condiment, or topping. Trick Nick Jerk Barbecue Sauce.
All right. Good afternoon, wonderful people. This is I'm Sure Sports, and this is your host, Manningsman. This is our second show for the day, and this one is better than the first one. It's going to be fantastic. We're not going to be talking about basketball. We're not going to be talking to a point guard, but he goes by the name John Wall. He has never played for the Washington Wizards, but I'm telling you, he's Swedish, right? And they are known for their football. And that's Switzerland, right? Swiss cheese? Yeah, Switzerland. What am I talking about? I don't even know. But welcome again to the platform. Listen, if this is your first time, it's always great to have you. And as usual, we ask you to hit the like button as early as you come on, as soon as you come on. Subscribe if you have not done so yet. And right now, you need to share the link. If you want to hear some good football and stuff, you need to share this link to others, all right? Then, it is Super Friday, so all your super stickers and super chat are welcome. My Arsenal cup is empty, but we are still going to lift the Premier League title, and then I don't know. I'm just hoping and praying, but we plan to put some stuff in there to fill it up, so to quench the thirst. You know how it is. But it is my privilege today to have with us Mr. John Wall. He is the senior head coach for the Jamaica Reggae Boyz, right? That's number one. He is the assistant coach for the Reggae Boyz, under 20 coach, and he's helping with the talent identification project that Jamaica is embarking on. We're going to hear about that, all right? Listen, when I interviewed Gumi, the goalkeeper coach, it was long. When I interviewed Coach Himiel Hallgrimsson, it was longer than the Gumi interview. So, going at that rate, I think this one is going to be the longest of all three, but we will see. Mr. Wall.
All right, I got a lot to live up to right now because of what my Icelandic foeman has done.
I'm telling you, I don't know how you're going to outdo them, but we will see. I think you have it in your locker to do that.
I do.
Yeah, man. But first and foremost, welcome again to I Am Sure Sports. Welcome again to Jamaica. It is my pleasure to have you on the platform, and there are so many persons who are extremely excited when they heard that you were coming on. Yeah, all kind of nice stuff and all of that. I see. I don't know what this is saying, but this seems like it's in Swedish.
It's true. It says, "How are you?" And yeah,
Ah,
what
oh,
actually differs from the English Latin base that we all have, except for yeah, obviously Padua is a little bit different, but
oh. So it
Swedish got
appears that this
three
person
letters
doesn't.
that differs. Yeah,
Yeah, I think the
he's using
person. I
Google
think the person.
Translate probably.
Yeah, I think the person doesn't speak Swedish. What they did, they probably just picked it from Google.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah, but
Probably did.
they probably did. But yeah, big up Wilkes, right? But listen, we want to begin by, I know persons have been seeing you around, they have been heard bits and pieces from you, but I want to give you the opportunity first and foremost to help Jamaica to know you more. Those who are in the States and those who are in England, those who are living here on the island. Tell us a little bit about your background and, and how you initially got involved into football to where you are today.
It always starts in humble beginnings. At least for me, I don't have a major playing background. Started coach when I was 20, and then and my first victim was my younger brother. Obviously, he quit after 2 years, but that was it. Always higher demands in your family. But he turned out pretty all right anyhow. I moved on to sports and science, done that, and I was coaching at the same time. Was in a fourth tier club at the time. A lot of players produced, and 5.5 years later, back in 2009, I got recruited to AIK Stockholm, which is one of the major clubs in Sweden. Big fans, a lot of fans. And then I got to realize how much it can affect the people's lives on an everyday basis. Was fortunate to work there for 5 years. Worked in a third tier club as a head coach. Was at that time too involved in the Finnish national team as a tactical and analyst, and was a mix of being analyst and on the field. The head coach got fired after a year, so moved on, and then worked recently on the club. Been in software development, but my main profession is coaching. So got badges from UEFA all the way, and been fortunate enough to be been across the globe in different occasions, not just in a national team environment, but a club environment too. So it's been a ride, and I'm very humbled to be part of this whole legacy project of Jamaica, as I like to call it.
Yeah. And how did this Jamaica opportunity came about, and were you familiar with the happenings of Jamaica's football before you actually took on this new role?
I've been here before, and I've been meeting with staff, and I've been to Kingston before and hold some sessions and looked at the game more senior level and a little bit of youth. So I kind of understood the landscape a bit, but obviously you only know it to a certain degree. But there's always more to discover because Jamaica is a rich country in terms of experiences and what people are trying to accomplish.
Okay. All right. You did mention that you have done your UEFA badges. That is up to I think the highest level they have is the pro license.
Correct. I don't have the pro. I got an A and I got the A Elite Youth. So it's actually a double. So
Oh,
it's two different ones. Yep. So I got both. A Elite Youth does not exist in CONCACAF, but it will come. It's actually for those who are working usually between the ages of 15 to 21 in elite environments. So
okay.
more
Which is
looking
why you
into
would be a
positional
yeah.
development.
Okay, which is why you would be a part of the U20 setup, because that's what you'd call the area of specialty for you in terms of
In a
dealing with
way,
elite.
yes. It's yeah, and it's been kind of a become a kind of a nick in helping and being a part of players' development in order to make the final push into first team or on a bigger level. Yeah.
Okay, and how, because I know football is in stages. How do your role with the youth affect what happens with senior teams? How does the transition work in terms of the necessity of your role between age 15 to 20, and then from there on to senior national teams?
Well, it's a big question. But first of all, it's about creating pathways. How do we create pathways into the first national team? Second is to be more coherent in what we're looking at. So it doesn't matter if a U15s, U17s, and 20s, it should be, oh, that's a Jamaican team. They could even play without the shirts. That's kind of the vision and the idea behind it. And more likely looking out to build an infrastructure that's sustainable over time. And that meaning helping and aiding and putting certain both digital and actual practical infrastructures in place.
Right, which is part of the new FIFA talent identification process. Can you
Correct.
for us, the persons we are just fans, we don't understand the details of the FIFA identification program process. Can you just explain that to us so we can get a better understanding of what it entails, and where Jamaica is at in terms of being along that pathway, as you said before?
Yeah. So put your seatbelt on, Manning's man now. So, okay, we're gonna start macro now. Okay, the big macro. Not every fan knows, but Arsene Wenger is the head of football development in FIFA, and obviously, him entering the scene is obviously affecting in how FIFA is gone about. The bigger thing now, I'm talking outside of Jamaica, is that I think it's 30 high performance managers has been recruited by FIFA. So we actually have a counterpart in FIFA, even if it might be an expertise in player development, or it might be building sustainable infrastructures, or building a national training center, whatever, or even fitness and so forth. So expertise is available. Moreover, is that obviously this cycle, and usually FIFA works in cycles, this is the 3.0, the third cycle, which means from now until 2026 World Cup, there's a cycle of money involvement when it comes to talent ID, the regular support that FIFA gives to every federation that fulfills certain standards, infrastructural development, even CONCACAF receives money from FIFA, and you have the Caribbean base too. So you have the bigger regional like UEFA, CONMEBOL, CONCACAF, Asia, Oceania, and so forth, and Africa.
Right.
So they get money. This is a specific project. The Talent ID is supposed to aid the elite of the elite from certain age groups when it comes to competition, tournaments, coach education, scouting, talent ID, meaning finding the talent and guiding them the right way. So it's on so many levels, and we have applied, done our due diligence, which I'm the head of, and converted that into strategical documents, all
So
according to the
you're
FIFA
actually the
standards.
head of that process where Jamaica is concerned.
Yes,
Okay, which is okay. So that means part of your portfolio outside of the assistant coach of the national team, heading the U20, you also head up this talent identification process, preparing the documentation to apply for whatever funding is available, and to see its implementation.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct. So
All right.
I'm the jack of all trades, but hopefully I'm not the master of none.
You're the John. You're the John of all
Uh,
trades.
so what I'm trying to do is it's more of a project lead, I would say, the definition of the role, but meaning that I'm responsible for making sure that we meet up to the requirements on not just a daily basis and hope we're gonna get there. We better make sure we get there.
Okay, so that one of the things that is very important. So we have met all the criterias to receive the funding, or we have to build capacity in some other areas, maybe infrastructure, or to the level of accounting, the availability of talent, or the coach. Are there things we need to put in place, or it is safe to say that the funding has been made available because we have met all the key targets to get the funding?
I would say more that the application is sent, and it's kind of more that we are targeting to reach certain things that we have everything set. Because otherwise, the funds would be deemed by FIFA as unnecessary, where it's already there.
Okay, okay,
Meaning,
okay.
I can make an example. There's obviously out there that the U15 national team boys are supposed to go to an overseas
In
tournament, which
in
happens to be
Malmo,
in Malmö. Yeah,
Malmo, right, right. Where is it's in
yeah,
Sweden? Yes.
that's my hometown. So yeah,
Ah,
where it is. Yeah. Um, but the major point is that how many times have 15 boys, thinking about the girls as well, have they been subject to an international reference at that early point? There's a bigger FIFA report that came out where they looked into every federation and they looked into best practice. On a global scale right now, is that Europe is getting two way ahead. And it's not that they have more talent in Europe. It's more the fact that they have better means to expose players to better environments, better
okay.
competition, better educated coaches, presumably, but they do it on a more frequent basis. And that doesn't say that they have more or better talent.
Okay, so which is what this whole process will aid in to ensure that all talent can be unlocked, can be identified, and put on the pathway to be elite players. That's so. So does this funding include like building physical infrastructure, or it is more catered to like preparing coaches and preparing teams, or it would include, like I said, building the capacity maybe to have better. Because I remember, and I'm asking this because I remember when uh, Coach Hal Grimson spoke, he spoke about the surfaces and how important the surface is to aid with talent development. So, does the funding deal with that aspect, or that's the federation job with other source of funding from FIFA?
That is from other source of funding. What I would say and how to treat the FIFA money is it's not a handout, and it's not just to be there and you can do whatever. FIFA has dissected where the money is supposed to go. And this is obviously for that elite, but our whole and part of the purpose is that percolate down in the system, meaning how do we coach our youngsters? How do we do this and that? So the infrastructural development, that's aside, but there is funding available for that too. But I'm not responsible for that part, but I can only say about what I see and have facts for. It's a simple way of life. I don't have an opinion on what things I don't have a fact for.
Okay, awesome. I like that. I like that. So, all right. So now in identifying the talent, is it talent that are local or just Jamaican talent, wherever they are? Meaning if you're in the United States, if you're in England, or it is predominantly for domestic youth talent, or it's just no, this is for Jamaican talent. If 20 are in the United States and 20 are in England that are Jamaicans, they can be a part of this. Or is it that FIFA's goal is to develop domestic talent who are not exposed to the elite environment that those in Europe or in the States are exposed to?
I wouldn't say anything contradicts each other in a way. I think that's a chosen view in a way on Jamaican players. You generally, the way of changing a culture is to change the language. Why do
Yes.
Jamaicans say local? Is it just Kingston you're talking about? Or is
Well,
it
I said
domestic or national level?
right. I said domestic. That's why I said domestic.
No, 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 no. You said local. You did
No, man. I
not
said,
think about you're unconscious about what you're saying.
you know
Because
what?
you're in the flow, you are here.
All right, all right. No, but really,
Yeah.
because I'm being sure I wrote it down, because I remember one of the first thing Coach Al Grimson said is that, listen, the first thing we need to change is exactly what you just said. We need to change
Yeah.
the language. And changing the
Yeah.
language is saying domestic. So, all right, you said, I said, but
Yeah.
it is domestic. We're talking about domestic players and
And
those who
and
are,
that's a good way because now
yeah,
I'm rubbing myself on him because I'm pretty vivid at times too.
yeah,
Yes, in order to return to the question, for me is about not contradicting the diaspora versus Jamaican-born players. It is by growing them together in a way where there will be instances, there will be talent unheard of from us that has not been utilized. But at the same time, adhering, and my perception of Jamaica is that it's on the amount of talent that's available but not influxed or utilized in proper settings and an environment is what actually it's been hurting. I would say to a certain point, players can exist. Then, unfortunately, the talent gradually starts to die in order to be blunt. Players need to be exposed, and nothing better would that I would have is a vision of that the domestic league, the national level league, becomes so competition rich that every year there's someone playing the Champions League in CONCACAF. We have an influx of clubs coming here for friendlies, which would help the national economy great. And there's not just one thing is going to affect the system, it's on so many layers. And I hopefully during my time, even though I'm not going to see the trees of the seeds that we plant today, because usually it works like this on a youth level. Every decision you make, it takes 5 to 7 years before you see the light of the day of it. That's the longevity and the kind of play you have to do in this game. But for me, it's more about having an infinite mindset. It's not the way that you're going to win or lose. It's about moving the things forward.
yeah, yeah, making sense. And with that being said, the local league, I know that um,
Oh, oh,
you
oh,
can,
oh,
you
oh,
can
oh. There you go. There you go again.
the domestic league, thank you, the domestic league,
Yeah.
right, needs to be like in other territories, they are licensed, like licensed by FIFA. There's a licensing process. Are you aware if our domestic league is qualified to be one of those licensed leagues, or they have to meet certain, like I said, criteria to be part of that FIFA licensing?
Not aware. Yeah, I'm not aware of the FIFA level licensing, but I know about the UEFA standards at least, because that's Europe.
Okay.
That's kind of a home turf for me. That comes to facilities. It comes to the academy. It comes to actually have X amount of employees, the turnover, and actually how much money is being spent on the academy. Like in Netherlands, it's by law that the league has set that the overall turnover of the club, 10% has to go to the academy. Otherwise, there will be deduction of money to the club.
10% has to go to the whatever income is generated. 10% of that income has to go to the academy in the club.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Wow.
So you have to imagine, so Ajax, biggest club in Netherlands, their
Yeah.
annual turnover is, well, it's around 320 million euros, I think, or roundabout. So 10% has to go to the cap. And why are they selling so much players?
Because some of that money is being channeled back into the academy.
And they have realized we have to sell in order to survive and move the club forward. That's kind of part of our business idea.
Okay. Wow. That's. It would be good if we can someday, like I said, 5, 7 years from now, as a nation, get to that in our domestic league, where they
And
have.
I think
But first, I think this club.
yeah, and you come into something that where me, I have the privilege of having outside in view instead of in out. And my outside in view is that the school system is strong and it exists. And it will be here when I'm gone too. No problem. But it's more about working within the context of Jamaica and make that better than trying to rip things up and trying to be adhered to a European thing. It's not about that. It's about making the best of every single dime that's available and the resources that we have and being smart about it.
Yeah, which makes sense. So basically, what you're saying is not trying to uproot the present school football in school system. Is how we can use that to facilitate all the other
Yeah.
things that needs to happen. Because maybe it can work. Maybe we don't have to go clubs having academies, but maybe some of that work could be channeled back into the
No,
schools. Yeah.
then you can back off in a bit. And this is kind of where US is struggling. They're not just struggling on one level, they're struggling on so many levels. Lessons learned from US is where the MLS clubs is removing players from the high school system.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not playing in that system anymore because they know it's more about winning than actually educating. And I'm not implying that within this, but Jamaica has it might for some it might be more important to be the king of the town than the prince of the country. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Wow. That's. I think you
Yeah,
need to say that again. Yeah. It is more being interested in
yeah,
being the king of the town than the prince of the country.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Meaning, and
Yeah.
what I think what's lacking is a global reference from the game. And the global reference is demands and what to expect on a certain age group and so forth in order to be able potentially to move up to the highest potential level, which is Champions League. That's the highest level you can play in, no matter if you're a boy or a girl. And should we ignore that fact? And I usually make it like this. My oldest son, he's turning 8 this year. He does not have a bigger talent than an 8-year-old of Jamaica. Okay. But the fact that he's in a semi-professional club, he trains twice a week, 40 weeks per year. Who's getting ahead?
He would be. He's way ahead of the kid in Jamaica at that same age group
Yeah,
because we don't have that amount of
no.
hours dedicate. Yeah.
And for me, and that urgency has to happen today. It should have happened a week or yesterday. But you have to realize Right now, it's more a survival of the fittest than the survival of the talent. And meaning we're racing to the bottom because, to my knowledge, I think 12 for boys is the first age group for schoolboy football, correct?
Yeah, there you go. Under 12 in the primary school.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
they're just started recently. You'll have some under 9, like,
okay.
but it is not widespread. It is
Oh,
in specific geographical location. But because more academies have been popping up all over, but there's no formal competition though. But there are some, like my son is playing an under 9 competition this weekend. So
yeah,
there are some of those
that's
that are
cool.
kept, but there's no consistent
No.
national.
And if you look, yeah, and if you're looking at the year when it comes to competitive year, a comparison of a 17-year-old in England, how many months per year are they in competition?
Yeah,
10 and
yeah,
a half to 10, yeah, 10 months. And compare that to here, Jamaica, how many months of competition at best?
at best. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I remember just recently in I just did a calculation. I don't have to go to England, but in the States, the kids, like I said, those they pay, a lot of them pay to be in those. Well, the academies outside of the MLS academies, because there are many academies. They play football, like I said, for 40 weeks minimum, and they train
Yep.
probably from a Monday to a Thursday every evening for an hour and a half, and then they have competitions. Our kids in Jamaica, one, which is a point you're making, we don't have a lot of facilities where they can train at nights. So when they leave school, by the time they get home, it's dark. So they can't even train. And when you're at school, you're there to learn. So I like this because it is saying that the whole system, not it don't need to be uprooted, but we need to look at how can we work with this system to bring all the talents along this pathway, like you initially said, without uprooting the whole system, but make necessary changes, which is one of them is to at least get the kids to be playing more than they are now.
And for
Because
me, the word,
yeah,
yeah, the word talent is overrated. I think it's more a matter of mindset and environment, exposure to that. Because although talent might be given, but if you're not improving yourself 1% per day, you're going to be in decline after a year. Very simple. And furthermore, academy as a word, that has to be earned from my perspective. But yet again, have you gone through a certification process? Do you have the facilities? Do you have all the X amount of coaches? Are you safeguarding the players? And so forth. I've done certification process in Nordics, and for me, it's not about the dollar spent. It's what you have and what you consistently do, and what kind of idea and framework in mind do you have. So
yeah,
taking that on and not just putting on with my glasses onto Jamaica, I have to think it from bottom and looking up and using the global reference in order to work with the constraints and the context there is. But there's one thing that Jamaica has, and many things more that Europe is yearning. The players are still, even though dropping, playing on the streets. The streets is where the heart of the football from Jamaica is. It's where they can create their own personalities, their traits, and ignite their passion for the game. That has to be protected instead of putting players into institutions.
yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. It's the streets. I think in last year I spoke to Alfredo Montesa, and he was saying that Brazil, when they lost to Germany in the World Cup, they realized that like the European style play had almost affected that South American Brazilian flair that they used to had, that they intentionally, since that defeat to Germany in the World Cup, tried to get more street soccer going again in Brazil, because they felt like the soul of soccer. That's what he was saying. Like the soul of soccer has been taken away because that raw talent in the street was no longer coming through, and so yeah, that's
I think
important.
Juan Malillo has said it like this the best. The global game has become so that it doesn't matter where he goes, the mythology is still the same. And meaning by trying to kill all the bad guys, we have killed the best ones too.
Whoa, whoa.
Meaning, why are Germany buying players from England? Yeah, because at least a lot of those players are still coming from the street. Whereas 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds have been institutionalized, coached, overcoached, that they're perfectly fitting into a system. But hey, I mean, even dogs have personalities, right, Mannix man?
Yeah,
And I always
definitely.
say
Yes.
that even dogs have personalities. Make sure to have a personality on the game, but you need to adhere to the team context. But how can you act within the team context? And that's they felt that 2014 game for Brazil hurt their soul, so they they went wrong in a way. Instead of becoming even better in what they are, their true identity, their DNA, but still add certain things in place that's better.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you're right. So let's take this word first, right? What are some of the I mean, you've been here for a while. I mean, culture is also important. Understanding the culture of the people, how they think, how they operate, and uh, what are some of the challenges that, listen, here are some of the challenges that we'll have to overcome, just for you as a person and for us as a people, to see you meet these key markers that after 5 years, um, we can look and say the football has changed in all areas because the culture has changed. But today, here are the key challenges we need to get over as a people, and how those challenges affect you in doing your duties on the talent
Yeah.
identification process.
Um, I would say it's not culturally biased, but it's more that we just adhere. We got a lot of work to do. Let's just accept that first, uh, in order to bring ourselves to a baseline of becoming internationally competitive. My vision, and I think I'm sharing that with JFF, is to be a consistent for men's, I'm talking there, and women, is to be a consistent top 30 country in the world when it comes to World Cup and ranked by merit on FIFA, but also have a really rich club life. That means that clubs strive and achieve good things. That I would say, bring in the national level, the top two tiers, into both when it comes to pitches and infrastructure to a decent level. There has to be data produced because that's the first hinder that the players are going through, be potentially to be scouted. There is not instances where a scout just feels to come to Jamaica. It has to be a thought through process, and that we're matching up. Um, and then that the youth, that school and club system finds a workable relationship and they're independent from each other, where the players come first not by being the king of the town instead of the prince of the country.
Yes.
And we're not here to celebrate egos, but I do accept of having trailblazers that will lead the way with players, coaches, and return and come back to create a network of scouting and creating a lively database that's going to serve Jamaica for many years forward, that we own it, and that coaches are potentially going abroad and coming back to actually grow the game and get new
Yeah.
experiences and realize, oh, I thought I was good, but I better up my level a bit. And that doesn't go to saying that the potential is low. It's not. It's got things in abundance, but we cannot act as have just a reference that exists from Kingston to Montego Bay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah. Yeah.
my nickname is Steamroller at times. So sorry.
No, 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 no. Listen, this is very good. I love it because it is very interesting because in different ways we have been you have been saying some of these things. No, you are because this is where I think you come in because you're a software developer and an analyst, I believe you say in terms of football and stuff. So are you helping? Because this sounds like a whole lot of things that needs to be done. Can John Wall, one person, be senior team assistant coach, U20 head coach, creating softwares for all of these different things, leading the talent identification process, monitoring the 8-year-old star that the next Slatan um, over there in Sweden managing his family. Are you able? How are you going to get like all of this
Yeah,
done?
I ask. I like to work. I don't work 9 to 5. Let's just say that to begin with, and it's not about putting me in a good manner or anything. I think for me, about being involved in different processes actually feeds my soul a lot. That's for me, but then it's up to my employer to actually say, are you doing a good job or not? It cannot just be me alone. It's not a me, it's a we thing. But me is part of we. And for me, I'm more interested that other people get credit, and I'm not here for the credit. I'm here to make a change, and that's what really drives me. I think I can manage because otherwise I would become jumpy like this. I need something to do and being consistent. And I've done processes before, but there will be times when I need to be picked up too. And there will be times when I will pick up a fellow man too. But I love the fact that I'm being involved in something macro this big, and where it's more about showing the world that you can do it with less money, you can do
Yeah.
with more passion and more conviction, that can propel things forward.
In the because you spoke about club football in Sweden, in the top flight of Swedish league, how many teams presently play in that? Because it's a fully professional league where they normally have even team from Sweden playing in Champions League, in the Europa League, and in the conference, the Europa Conference League as well. But I mean, Sweden normally do well. They do well on the male side and on the female side. I think they missed the last World Cup, but they're normally um, thereabout in the World Cup and advancing. But how many teams are in the top flight and in the second tier of the Swedish league?
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that Sweden doesn't have problems. But
Oh,
16 teams in the top league and 16 in the second highest, those would be more considered like full professional. Third tier is semi-professional, but players are can play for full time, but it's more deemed as semi-professional. Third tier is atypical, a perfect place for players coming from the youth and making their first team debut. That's what the third tier is about, and
Okay.
produced a lot of players. Sweden, 10.5 million currently. Sweden is in the top 10 marathon table of the World Cup of all time. That's meaning that Sweden is punching above their weight. In order to win the World Cup, usually you have to have 50 million inhabitants or more. If you read Soccernomics, there are certain factors in order to win the World Cup. So there are ways to punch above your weight, and I think that can be adhered to Jamaica as well. But no country in the world has a bigger diaspora than Jamaica, that where they're not really actually living in every country in
Tapping
the
into.
world except
Yeah.
Afghanistan.
Yeah, yeah.
So either
We have,
you, and this was a
I
recent factor.
sorry, I know there's a Jamaican family in Afghanistan. At least one.
Oh, there you go. But they're
Yeah.
not having a good time right now, I'll tell you that. Um, but I would say that either your side and have sort of an island mentality, that's why I call it. US has expressed a typical island mentality too, in a way, not connected to the rest of the world. And that's dangerous. Jamaica has affected the world in much bigger way than any way expected due to the size when it comes to culture, music, life view, and fashion.
And track and
So
field.
why should, yeah, true. And why shouldn't football be part of that too? So I
Yeah.
dare everyone to actually look at a bigger thing. And recently I just looked at, I can only speak from things that I know and for a fact. Recent U18 squad in Sweden, how many players of that squad do you think had a different last name than your atypical Swede?
Sweden. How many players are different than a typical than Ibrahimovic
Nothing
or
Anderson, no Joe. Yeah,
Anderson?
exactly. Like,
I
yeah,
think because of how global football is, I'd want to say that probably um, like the majority of that squad now had different surnames. It may not have happened years ago, but I think now because of how just football is, I think like probably most of them had, you know, non-traditional Swedish
different list.
names.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, 50%.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. And do for me, and for me, are they a less sweet than I am? No. And is there what Zlatan has done for Sweden is that, yeah, he was debated. He's the same age as me. Obviously debated early and everything that he was outspoken, but really, but yeah, I mean, he been able to carry that, and more now it's more of a gimmick than anything. But he's been a trailblazer and changed minds on they're not different. It's more about what you actually can bring to the table. And I think I rather see myself following from king of the town to the prince of the country. I rather see myself as a world citizen than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that
And
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and when it comes to Europe right now, Sweden is struggling to have a consistent Champions League team, but that's really due to money in a way. Right now, it's Malmö that's there, the consistency of it, group stages. But last year alone, just by reaching group stages, they made 45 million US. They didn't win a
Whoa.
single game in the group stages. 45 million. And Malmö has more money than rest of all clubs combined together. But they
Whoa.
still didn't win the Swedish championship last year.
Interesting. So are you
Meaning,
having? Go ahead. Go ahead. Meaning?
yeah, and Yeah, and now you have a third cup, which is the Confederations Cup, which I think might be the gateway for Swedish clubs to actually get European experience how international games are compared to their domestic league. Sweden is a development league. Let's just accept the fact we are there for the richer clubs and teams to
Come,
pluck our
yeah,
best talent. Yeah,
yeah. I always wondered why. Let me just ask this: why? I think Luton Shelton would have played in Sweden. He's one of those Jamaican strikers back in the day. And a few other Jamaicans may have played there. I always wondered why, like those markets, because I know we have had a U team. I think years ago, like a Cavalier U team went to this competition in Sweden as
Gothia
well.
Cup.
That was got right, right. So I always wondered how, like those markets, the Swedish market, the Danish market, like we don't see players from domestic players breaking into.
But right now, Denmark is ahead of Sweden. Gothia Cup is the biggest tournament in the world, youth tournament, by the way.
Oh,
It happens to be, that's a fun story. It's a Gothenburg-based club that actually won their
right.
first championship. And back in the 80s, it was two clubs who owned that tournament, Gothia Cup. This club, Gais, happens to be pretty known for making stupid decisions. So they said, no, we're not going to be part of this anymore. We're going to go with a bicycle race instead. So Häcken, who owns Gothia Cup, has the best training facilities in Sweden. They have a pretty good bank account and they're running and they have on their home ground, or sorry, their training facility, they have a specific persons who are just working for the tournament, but they can work for the club too. So
Oh,
you
okay.
have in multiple organizations, so they're making pretty good money. But those markets are, I would say, Scandinavia is pretty good entry market for clubs coming abroad. That has happened in the past with African-based players. First point of entry being Scandinavia. The good thing about if I'm treating all those countries as the same is that we're kind of more or less a little bit socialistic based. We care about players. It's not like oh, this doesn't work, kick him out or her. Helping them understand basics and fundamentals when it comes to tactics. And usually a turnover is entry 6 to 24 months, and then you're sold, taking the next step.
Whoa. All right, awesome. All right, let's get down to a little bit more specific. So you've been here. This is your first time with a group of Jamaican players, meaning your U20, and many people are kind of okay. The U20 World Cup actually starts this year. So initially they were saying that it starts this year, which means the next qualification is not until next year. How come we're calling up U20 players now? What is this about? Then we heard about the CAC gives coming up, and so yeah. So talk to us about your long-term project in terms of this U team, why this is being done know and what is the vision, what is the preferred future you have that would make you begin the process this week.
Yeah, there's always humble beginnings. And what I've heard, like the Last Supper, there was not many people there, but it was turned out to be a pretty good enterprise anyhow. Sorry about that, man. But they made strides, and those people
Yeah.
became more and more. Uh, and this is the approach that I've taken, just as Ajax do with their youth academy. They actually start with very few players and have a reverse pyramid. Very few,
Oh,
building values and everything. It's not the fact that they will be there the whole time, because that might change. But here's a flip side to the thinking that might be actually a thinking problem for me, but more of a praxis in Jamaica. It's tournament driven instead of being educational and cycle driven. the youth national level.
Wow.
How
Yeah.
do you expect to affect players' level and monitor the development of the talent if you're not doing it on a consistent and frequent basis?
Yes.
This is not being done as it is right now. And I will not submit to that it's a financial thing, it's a thinking thing. Meaning there's a gap between 17 and 20, whereas taking US, Mexico, you have 18, 19, 20, 21, and so forth. You even have U23's at times too.
Yes.
Correct. So how do we bridge that gap? And for me, U20s is about, yes, I'm aware, I'm not that of an idiot, that it's not a tournament this close, but at the same time we got the 21s, which is kind of a different set. But if we're not doing it frequently and affect those players who can transmit those demands that me and my coaching staff is going to transmit to them, how do I expect to make a change in the environment?
Yeah.
Because you know what happened when they introduced the wolf back in Yellowstone, right?
Yeah. To
The
get rid
river
of.
started
Yeah.
to no, they introduced the wolf again. And what happened with the river? It actually changed the
Change
way
course.
it went.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
changed course. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm not saying I'm the wolf of Wall Street. I'm
I
not.
was just going to ask you if you were the wolf.
Yeah, no, but I hope to be
But
not a
you're changing the
prey
course.
predator.
You're changing the
I
course.
hope to change the course, and I'm trying to
Oh, you
change the
hope to change the course.
frequency. But for me, it's more about frequency than intense duration.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
firmly believe, and I have scientific proof of that. If you and I meet for a year consistently, you will change me, and hopefully I will change, improve you too.
Yeah, yeah. We add value to each other's
Yeah,
life. That's
yeah,
what it's
yeah, we
supposed to
do.
be. So the repetition and the consistency is important. Because and the truth is that most persons have been saying we wait until 2-3 weeks before a tournament and call a player because we are more tournament driven, like you said earlier, than cycle driven. So we're not considering the cycle. And I like the things that you're saying because in the States you everything up to 20. U7, U8, U9, U10, U11, U12, U13, U14, U15, U16, U7. So in Jamaica you have like under 13, under 15, under 17, under 20s. So like I
And
said,
how do coaches select? They probably would select a player that's more physically ready than that
ye-
it's been down to the actual talent. And
exact
football is sorry, I can say it. It's a brain-driven sport. It doesn't matter if you run faster than me. If you run wrong to the wrong place, you're a headless chicken. And I'm not.
no,
I'm at the right
yeah,
spot at the right time.
yeah, yeah. Because most of it
Meaning,
is between the ear. Most of the football game is what
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. And
yeah,
sometimes and goes right through. But for me, it's about putting the actual correct context of what the football is. I'd like to stand up for that and take who can join in for that. And that this is not going to be, it's not a revolution. I hope it will be more of an evolution. And
evolution.
there
Yeah,
will be bite backs, there will be setbacks, no problem at all. But it's more treating Jamaican where I'm at. It's more about be less wrong than be right the whole time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, no, just get down to some specific because you know, what about the process of those who actually get called up for whatever it is? Because I know that from the initial group that we saw, not everyone was available for different reasons. How important is the communication, the dialogue to make sure that if you want to see this player and you're coming from Sweden, that player is available to you. And if the player is not available, you know long before. So if you need to look at somebody else or you need to work with somebody else, you can. How can we make that? I always say to people, yeah, you criticize, but it's always, how can we do it better next time?
Yeah.
What are some of the things we need to improve on to get the communication? Because we know that, like, some of us knew that some of the persons would not have been available
Yeah.
once we saw the list. And yeah, I don't know if you're a coach, you plan everything based on the amount of players. Your sessions are planned in terms of what you'll do, how you'll do it, and if what you are expecting is not what is there, it can affect your flow. So how do we do that better going ahead?
It's easy to find the ways that things went wrong. We can always go with what actually went right first. And it's more about, for me, it's not, yes, communication has to improve. That's very open. But I'm here, my priority is to serve the players. Number one, it's
Yeah.
serving the players. And I'm not saying I'm God Almighty and saying I'm correct all the time. We can take that out of the window. What we can do is create more, because this is from George Bernard Shaw, and I always find it pretty good to use it. The lack of clarity leads
What's his
to the
name?
lack. George Bernard Shaw.
George Shaw. Vernon Shaw. All right, let me write that name.
George Bernard Shaw. Yep. The lack of clarity leads to the lack of demands and agreement. And the lack of agreement and demands spells dishonesty and disaster.
Say that again one more time. I need everybody to hear. The lack of clarity leads to.
The lack of demands and agreement. And the lack of agreement and demands spells dishonesty and disaster.
All right. All right. So dissect that for us. I mean, how do we? Yeah.
What I personally, how I can improve this situation is not by throwing things out. This is on me, together with staff. Meeting the clubs. This is what you can expect from us. This is when call-ups will be given. This is the respond time that you have. You got a deadline. Are the players available or not? And for me, based on how call-ups are done in Europe, is that both the player and the club will know at the same time. It's not just to the club first. And more, what is unbiased, unhinged, and straightforward for the U20's, what you can expect. For me, it's a certain benchmark of X amount of senior minutes that you have that in your natural environment. Because national team football or camps cannot, because they are spending more time in clubs, correct? Than they are with the national team. So that's the natural habitat. So yes, we want to educate, and yes, we want to have that driven, but we want it to be an elite environment too. But where I'm at right now with the U20s is about we have to take time to build values that are consistent across the board. That's why we're taking the time, because I don't believe in short-term fixes, because that's just going to lead to long-term problems. Meaning the 3 weeks camps, whoop, and what you're going to do then is you're doing things fast, short mindset towards the tournament. And the main point of youth national teams is to produce players to the first national team. That's the purpose of youth national teams. And winning, as it might be a part of it, but it's not the purpose that drives the environment.
Yeah. All right. Listen, there's so much. I mean, so much more I know the people want to say. So let me just ask this one, and there are so many questions that they have. But the first one is, some persons want to know if your name is actually spelled WHAL or WALL.
WALL, Berlin Wall, the Chinese Wall, the brick wall, whatever you want it. That's how my last name is spelled. Yeah,
All right. So, Triple E is asking, how do you scout players?
big question. I trust having a certain assessment process that I do. I will tend to watch more full games than I watch highlight. Number one. Number two, because anyone can look pretty good on a highlight. Trust me, anyone
Yeah,
can
they
do
are
that.
high lights, you know what I'm saying? Not low
Yeah,
lights.
and usually some music in the background too to sell things in. So yeah. Two is look into the context they're in. Now I'm doing this more macro. If I was a sporting director in a second tier club like Zweite Bundesliga in Germany, I would look to players that are within that context and have that benchmark. Third is their data over time on this player that can actually look at how they've been
Whoa.
consistently.
Yeah.
Four is
So hold on.
looking at
Can I ask you? Hold
injury
on. Before I
ratio.
get to
Yeah.
fourth, before I get to the fourth. So if your scouting is based on data, how do you scout a player playing in our local leagues when there
No,
is limited amount of
I
data?
said, nah, that's the third
Oh,
thing.
okay, okay,
So
okay,
this is, I'm giving you the whole elaborate, and in Jamaica, there's nothing
okay.
besides the goals and assists and everything. And sorry to say, even the Premier League website is still full of holes, I would say, statistically. You need
Yeah.
to own the data. That is that's the how you can monetize data today, so many levels, and you need to cherish it and hold on to it. Number four, I look for references on a player. References is that I look into. It's not always teammates. Sometimes it might be from the club, a coach, or it might be a coach that had this player before. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have to run it through, and then I always want a second opinion, whereas I ask perhaps a friend or that I trust inside the business to have a look at the player that's asking me certain questions. So it means I have to question myself before I make a verdict.
Whoa. So those are the
That's
four,
that's the
five.
general
So that's the
five,
general thing.
six
There's five.
instance. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. A lot of sense. This one says, share, management sharing what he expects from the club is great. What does he expect of the club? Is that important as well? And does he share that with them?
Yeah, what I will do, and this is a planned thing for me, that I want to get everyone on a Zoom call where I'm going to be the one just sharing, this is me, and I'm not always right, but it's not a plea. It's more what we can do together so we can aid them. And I have a ton of respect of the clubs where they're going through right now, where it's, are we in the top six or are we not, and whatever. But I have to start this journey slowly and steadily. I always prefer a good slow cook versus something quick in the microwave. That's how
Yeah.
player development is. It's never the microwave. It's gonna taste like shit after a while. It's just gonna feed you for 10, 15 minutes. So what I will share too is that complete transparency. This is what we did during the camp. This is how I saw it, and blah blah blah. So they're full aware of what happened during the camp too.
Okay,
So
that's
they get
important. So
full
you will
reports.
dialogue not just with the player, but with the club as
Yeah,
well. Oh, important.
yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So I mean, uh, so asking some of these quick questions because I know you, like I said, based on what you use, uh, there are two things. Well, there is the CAC games coming up. All right, which is at the same time as the Gold Cup. It's like they're around the same time, or there probably some overlapping. So that is going to be difficult I suppose, for you, because you're the assistant coach, you have other projects, the talent stuff you're working on, and you have the under 20 team. How are you going to navigate? Who will be assisting you that you can say, listen, because I know Coach Al Grimson wants you beside him at the Gold Cup, which means that you're probably not going to be at the CAC games. I don't know, but how do you plan on navigating that Jose?
Yeah, it's let's just say it's a team that's gonna have a full ownership by us. It has to be aligned with first team, so we actually have to start thinking like a club, meaning U20 is there to be a gateway, or it can actually filter to the first team. But it's for us to see who's next in line for the first national team. And obviously, when you're looking at our first national team, yes, and this is a cycle of the World Cup, there will be a transition of different things, players, because of age. And we cannot be peaking too early, but we need still to perform. So we have to have our squad planning in place. And for me, I love to clone myself. I would really love to, but it's not about me again. It's about putting someone in place that feels empowered and can actually deliver on an expected level too.
Yeah, yeah. All right. And so, I mean, tell me, I mean, someone said, listen, your first session, they just said that you share a little nugget about the importance of your first session. That, and one of the things that came out of that was just how that the players don't, the coach is not the only one looking at the players. The players are also looking at the coach, because and to make an impact. And if the coach, I think, just to go further into that, if the coach doesn't come off as being organized and knows what it's doing, it leaves an imprint on the player's mind, and if the vice versa. So how important is a first session for a coach with a new group of players, in that context?
It always becomes what you do of it, right? And if I want to play catch up and everything, I hope I shock the shit out of them. That was my plan.
Good shot, good shot.
Yeah, yeah. So for me was that I like to view the first session and the second session are in tied to each other, because that's the installment that the day one and day two is a logical following sequence of that. You know, the data language, it's this and that. And for me, I actually approve, because my take on Jamaican culture is that it's ex-colonial and it still has too much of a hierarchy approach on a lot of things. And for me, it's that I'm coaching from bottom up, meaning you do not start with explaining everything, blah, blah, blah. You're killing the players. The point of art of coaching for me, if you can make it as simple as possible, just one rule to get them going. And then from that, you build gradually, 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 gradually. So at the end of the session, you're doing the most complex of everything. But the players feel that it's been natural and ongoing the whole time. And they have to be in game as much as possible. By constraints, it's natural. The game always has a consequence. It's directional. It's on so many levels that I have to think more ecological than thinking top down.
Yeah.
How's that complexity for your management?
No. Listen, I think you're great. I think I don't want to say we overcoach. I think because some of it I don't think is coaching. I think it is we
No.
over instruct. I call
No,
it
it's
over
orders.
instruct.
It's not
Yeah,
coaching. It's not
yeah, it's
coaching.
giving orders
It's
like
orders.
stop. All right, stop. All right, good. All right, stop. All right. Stop.
Yeah,
Come here. All right. Come again.
and that's remote control coaching. That's typical of parents coaching their child. So,
But the
I
big
met
question though
those. I've
is
seen those
since
in the past.
because yeah, well, I've seen those in the present, right here. So what I want to know is that how easy it is for you to communicate with the coaches that you interact. Maybe I don't know if you have seen like I don't even want to call it, but have you seen like probably under 15 and probably say, hey, here's an here's a here's a next way because uh, like how welcoming and I'm asking this because it's so tough because there's a perception that some of our coaches think they know it a whole lot
Yeah.
so they're not the most welcoming to instruction that seems like it is bringing correction or help to improve. All right, how have you how have you found that? Because I've I can tell you this. I've seen persons in our present national setup coach at the school level, and that's how they coach. And I've always sat down and
Okay.
watched and said, like, this
And I
this
don't
can't
have
be good.
facts for that. So, yeah, I don't have
Yeah,
facts for that, so I'm not gonna have
hypothetical,
an opinion. But
hy-
let's go
hypothetically
with me,
speaking.
and
Yeah,
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 uh, this is where I go, and let's do it with players. The best level a player can play at is when they're playing unconsciously competent. They don't have to think of what they're doing; they're just doing it. Get it?
yeah.
But here's the thing about what I found out about myself that I realized that I'm more confused, but perhaps on a higher level. But that's what I'm at. I realized by different things during the day, sometimes I'm not conscious about my incompetence, but then I become conscious about my incompetence. You know, my 7-year-old makes me aware of what I'm doing sometimes. That really, am I doing that? Yes, Dad, you are. Then I realize,
Yeah.
oh, this is how stupid I am about my own behavior. So the biggest mirror out there that I'm pointing towards is always me.
Yeah.
And that's usually the hardest thing for any human being to do. Look at yourself in the mirror to actually become aware of that eavesdropping. And I had a couple of those instances in my coaching life, my civil life, and hands down, I'm I'm a constant trying student of life, and
Yeah.
I'm a student of the game. I'm no better than any man. I only seek to be a master of myself. And how can we make coaches aware of what they're doing? One, start videotaping the sessions and look at yourself. Two, start looking at certain factors in the session. You know how much time coaches spend on reviewing their own sessions. And having someone criticizing you is probably the best gift there is.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That is true. It's whether or not you're willing to be criticized. But just want to know that those of you out there who want to call in and ask Coach Wall a couple of questions, I'm going to make the lines open and available right now so you can call in. We'll take a couple. He's a very busy man, so we don't want to prolong the whole thing. So call in, ask your questions, and then you can listen out for his response. But on that same note, so you had. I mean, I know initially there were 16 players. I think from my reports, you can verify this or clarify or give the correct answer. There were 11, a total of 11 persons who were able to make it on day one. But you said it was very good, just the whole because it is the beginning and it is starting small and going wider instead of starting big and coming down. I think that's
And
what
trimming down.
and
Yeah,
trimming down.
it
Yeah,
is. And yeah, and I'm not here to look at the player by player. It's the more the fact that want to be part of something and starting something, igniting, getting staff together, building the work environment, how we go about things. It's a lot of things that instead of taking just first team approach, it has to be within that approach and put it in the U20's. And
Yeah.
hopefully we can gradually, and right now, yes, it is a top down, but that might actually move us quicker about across. And there are players who were not there, yes, they were not. And players that I was not aware of, and players not there, which I didn't know and have facts for. So for me, I hope to unravel, and once we get there, there will be the best team that we potentially can select. Perhaps not the best players, player by player, because that's also, I think, where we're trying to build a way of playing, a framework, the true framework, how Jamaica can become efficient on international scene. We have to do things a little bit differently to work in the best possible way.
Yeah. Yeah. And some persons have said, for example, that if the players are not playing in the JPL, which is the league here, the domestic players, if they're not playing at the JPL, they shouldn't be a part of the under 20. Others have said that, listen, talent is everywhere, and they may not be playing in the JPL, but they could be playing and doing well at the high school level, or they could be doing at the tier 2 level or in the local leagues. Um,
But then again, you have to say compared to who?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Are you comparing against Germany on the 20's now, or what are you comparing with?
Well, I think when these things are said, I think a lot of the comparison is who we are going to compete with in CONCACAF. For example,
Yeah.
when you look at the players who play, say uh, in Mexico, the the players who play like U20 for Mexico are normally playing professional football. And
Yeah.
we have seen in previous tournaments that we have brought high school kids playing in our high school league to play against these players who are playing, like I said, in the top flight of Mexican football, the top flight of Costa Rican football, and in the USL or in, you know, I know they have the USL next program now, but a lot of them. And so then when you compare that, you're saying, wouldn't those players be ahead of our kids playing at the high school level, seeing that, like you were saying earlier, it's a 3 month program, but is there any real comparison or where that is concerned?
I would say, yeah, whatever. I think we have the international benchmark things. I think that's what's really needed. And
Yeah,
how do we go about that? It's on a multiple level where we can actually increase our network, where people are actually sitting, taking webinars, where there might be options where a few can actually go abroad and watch and be part of setups and look. Oh, this is the setup. This is the level, and performing. And it has to be an agile approach instead of this is it and then we go. An agile approach is that you do sprints and learn in that sprint, and then based on what you learned, you readjust the strategy of it. It's not the why, it's the how.
oh yeah,
Meaning you always, we cannot be the big cruise ship that's just turning in a little harbor. We have to be the small speedboat that can turn and adjust, but we're still going to the same place. That's what Jamaica has to be. And being that instead of being acting like a big cruise ship in a small harbor, we can be more agile and be improved. And the how small we are in a global scale should be to our advantage.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So, for instance, Northern Ireland has, for instance, now grown a lot of players recently. Why? Yeah, they adjusted and realized we're a small country. We have very few talented players that we need to crop them and select them in national teams and play within the competition, the domestic competition, as much as possible. Meaning they were starting to improve. A lot of those players have now been sold to Premier League.
Yeah.
So there are good examples out there that has to come to a realization here too.
I think
And
Wales is
yeah,
also a good example of that. You know, that whole crop
yeah,
of player with like Bale and Aaron Ramsey, that whole group that qualified for the World Cup is also a good example of what the principle that you just explained. I see Anita Bell here saying, when can he visit Falmouth United? I don't know about that. I don't
well,
know.
I love to, first of instead of just making it specific to Falmouth, my plan is to visit clubs, yes, in general, to come to
Okay,
understand
so
their
that's part of the plan
constraints,
to
to
visit.
understand that,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, it is, and obviously, so I'm not going to be just some hidden face out there. I'm John, and this is what I want to do and intend to do. So
All right.
yes, general question, I would help.
Awesome. All right. And then this one says, ask the coach if Holland is still the benchmark for a youth academy standard for the world.
No, it's not. It's one of many examples, but it's hard for Jamaica to compare itself to Holland instead of looking at perhaps less population. And if you take what I know, okay, AIK Stockholm, it's a club in Stockholm, okay? The
Yeah.
population of the bigger metropolitan area of Stockholm is 2.5 million, meaning almost equivalent to the same amount of inhabitants in Jamaica,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So from that point, you can find examples on a global scale where things are done in a different way. But you know Michael Porter, the economy professor from Harvard?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
No,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah. Here goes without saying, for every copied strategy that you do, it's the best value you can get is 0.9, meaning 90% of the original's value.
No.
But
Okay.
for every copied strategy, it's just 0.9 times 0.9. What do you end up with? Very low. So we cannot think like Barcelona. We cannot think like Bayern Munich. We cannot think like that. How can we think in order to make this work? So we got to think differently. Now I start to sound like Brad Pitt from Moneyball. But uh, meaning we have to think differently and we have to act within the constraints and the context that we have, and at the same time see opportunities where other people see, no, 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 that's not for us.
Yeah. Well, all right.
Yeah.
Listen, people, remember, you can call in if you want and ask your questions. All right. Somebody says, good point, coach. The filtering of best players for our clubs is not good. You need to identify the best kids to transition to the clubs. I think that one says. Now, how are you doing this in conjunction with the technical, the whole talent identification? Is it under the auspices of the technical director, or your role in the talent identification comes before the technical director is brought into play, or both have to work together um, from the initiation of the project?
Obviously, it has to be in conjunction. And I mean, the job of the technical director for me is the big painting, whereas the finer details are more the talent ID and a supplement where players can be exposed to environments they've never seen before and realize So my hopes with Malmö is both that it will be like this and it will be like that too. Meaning they're gonna be realizing, oh shit, this is the level, and they will also feel that we can actually compete at this level too.
Okay. Okay. So it
And
is in
talent ID
conjunction.
is the supplement. It's in conjunction, and but obviously there has to be modernization of certain aspects of Jamaican football, whereas things that flew 10 years ago does not fly today. That's the speed of the landscape
Yeah,
today.
I'm telling you.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
and
And that is it. I think as things have changed in the global, just football globally, you can look at the World Cup, that what they call minnows, more of them doing well. You can see that the level of competition, the gap has been significantly being reduced. When you look at Venezuela versus Brazil, there's no big drop off. Even in CONCACAF, you see that there was a time when Jamaica played Mexico, we were expected to lose. So the gap is closing globally. You see it even in club football, and for some reason, I feel like we have been left behind. Like we are already 10 years behind, and we need to make up that 10 years and still be as close in pace with those who are progressing beyond the 10 years that we have been set behind. And I don't know.
well, I do an analogy. First of all, you need to get on the platform first, because the first train is already left. Are we ready to jump on the next train?
Well, I sound like you're on stage three. So which is the first plane has left, the second plane has left, and three strikes, and we're out. So you are here to ensure that we get on this one, or else it's over.
Then it would be more like thinking of me as a messiah. I don't have a messiah complex. No, it's more about realize, and if I can affect, and again, affect that we get to a certain level, and I think there are ways to catch up a lot quicker, because whereas some federations, clubs have gone wrong in their ways and need to revert, we can use those bad examples to our favor.
Yes.
That's what we
Yeah.
can
Go
do.
ahead. Yeah. I think I'm having some issues with the call, so let me see if I can just get um a couple of callers trying to get on to ask a couple of questions. So let's see if we can get them on. This is
Man,
this is Ohini. He goes also by the name. Um, he runs a Teddy Cat show, but they call him Cataract. He's
Oh, dear.
ultra.
Everyone has a nickname in Jamaica.
Mr. Blake, welcome to the show. Good afternoon. What say you?
good afternoon. And good afternoon, Coach John Wall. Firstly, good afternoon, Coach John Wall. Thank you for taking the time to do the interview with the Ultras on Wednesday. It was refreshing listening to you, sir, and it was well received when it was posted.
Glad to
Can
hear
you hear
that.
me?
Yeah, man, he's hearing you. He's hearing you. He's just he knows that you talk a lot, so he's allowing you to talk.
Uh, So, I was busy doing something so that I caught it, and I know you sent me a link and respect. The coach hasn't given me the respect of interviewing me. I could call him certainly and really ask all the supporters of the Reggae Boys, particularly the Ultras, Dre Anywhere, Section 115, Gate 7 Ultras, all the Ultras, them, to put your support behind Coach John Wall. I think he has a vision for the future of Jamaican football. And let us all rally behind and support the coach, what he's doing, which I humbly believe is in the best interest of Jamaica. and Jamaican football, and wish him every success on anything he wants and needs. Uh, the fans, the ultras, we are just say the word coach, and we will do it. If it's to sweep the stadium, if it's to hold an umbrella, if it's to run out some Mexicans out of our stadium, anything you need us to do, we will do, so that your project can succeed. But Manning, if you would permit, I just have a couple of questions that I think were pertinent. After doing your first 2-day training camp, coach, I know you had 11 players there, I think of 18 that you called. Were you satisfied with it? And if you could give us, within reason, what was your assessment of your first camp? How would you say it met your objectives and etc.?
Thanks for the question, first of all, and thanks for the humble rallying support. Yet again, it's not about me; it's about we. That's what it all comes down to, and Jamaican football comes first. Yes, I need reflecting still instead of just spilling it out there, what I think and all that. I've done a few review and internal processes in my head. I am pleased with the respect and the willingness from the players. There are logistical things that needs to be improved based on what we kind of went through earlier with Manning's man, the communication part, and that I'm part of the problem too. And number two, but I'll also like to be part of the solution. Two is that we need to take care of the Bermuda Triangle for the age groups. If anyone has heard about the Bermuda Triangle in development of footballers, it's usually between the ages of 18 to 21. There's a lot of players, talented, coming in, a lot of players getting lost between those age groups. And there's a spillage of talent, and we cannot save it all. But right now, the system is not working in the favor of the players. We need to bridge that gap, both on a competitional level, training level, infrastructural level, and making sure there's pathways for each and every one.
All right. Any other question, Ketara?
We have questions. I think let me phrase the question differently for the coach. I understood what he's saying about reflecting. How much of your objective that you had when you conceived and called the camp did you achieve?
I did that with 100%, meaning values, what I stand for, and my DNA was transmitted onto the pitch. I hope that the reggae can meet heavy metal and make a good blend and a good sauce. And was the intention of the whole camp.
All right. So
Why
object.
are you laughing?
No,
Why are you
no.
laughing though?
Because of the analogy that was used, reggae and heavy metal. Sound like trap music. I don't know, but but all right.
Certainly not dance hall. Certainly not dance hall. Sorry for everyone who loves dance hall.
Reggae and that stuff. But the last two quick things I'd ask the coach, and I know I'd love to hear the other questions you have. Really, coach, you spoke about the Bermuda Triangle, where a lot of players get released from clubs, players who we thought would have picked on to become superstars or have senior professional careers don't make the transition. Some get injured, fall by the wayside, etc. But how do you see, or let me ask, the two largest talent pools for Jamaica reside locally on the island, domestic players, and in England in particular, where they are players who are being developed by another system who are eligible to represent Jamaica. How can you tell us the differences of you approach developing and selecting and getting the best talents and the right talents from both talent pools and others in order to come down to that final 20 that is going to take us to the Under 20 World Cup, hopefully win the CAC games, win the Pan Am games, win the Olympic gold medal, those wonderful things. How would you put those two together?
I think. Hold on, let me say. I think that I don't. Well, unless Code. I mean, you can go ahead, Code, but I think he answered that when he gave the 5 things. So I don't know because it's just a different question. But well, I don't know. Maybe you can answer, but I think
I can go ahead.
I think the question is answered already, Keter, but let Coach go and answer. But we have a next call, so I'm going to go and take the next call, and you can listen out for the answer because he's going to answer.
Right, so really the coach will answer. How would you? Right, so let me.
Yeah, man.
I'll listen and call back if I need to, man.
Okay, all right.
Respect you.
Yeah, man. Let me get the next one.
Right, I would say, the talent pools they cannot be compared, but it's almost like comparing apples and oranges. I think it's not fair to compare domestic grown talent compared to an English Premier League developed talent. It's not. It's not.
Yeah, I think you did speak about that. But one of the things you said you do is look at the context.
The context.
Part of the 5 things, right, that you did choose. One of them was the context that you spoke about. Which is important. That's why I'm saying that really it's just the same question, but it really boils back down to the same 5 things. It doesn't matter whether you're in Jamaica or in England. The context will determine or will be a part of the factor that determine, the decision that you'll make at the end. Because the context that you use to measure the player in England must be different from the context you use to measure the player in Jamaica. Because it becomes very relative. The context make, the thing relative to this context, relative to this context, relative to this context. And I think, But we have Kyle online, and Kyle, I'm going to take a question, but I have someone who they just sent in, they're at work from the diaspora. They can't get to call in, so they have this question. It says, question, we are informed by local coaches that the talent level in Jamaica is similar to any other countries across the world, but that from 15 onwards is where we see a drop off. How does he agree with that assessment, and what can be done, if so, to change this?
Yep, I think I got the question. I think what is being transmitted is that what Jamaica is experiencing is a race to the bottom. All talent is sort of equally shared within the context of how many inhabitants you have. Let's define that as a fact. More so, even though I experience it a lot more in Jamaica, but that's my subjective feeling about it. Is that you select players too early, too soon. And once you get to the 15s, there's no more talent to be found because they're already been deselected. And that's why there's no late bloomers per se. It's the early definition of selecting a team, school, and that's where you play. Instead of you train, you evolve, and a development of a player takes time. We can all agree on that fact that it takes time. It just doesn't happen. So from 6 years of age, having natural connections, they do multiple sports at times and everything. You can look at scientific research on where Olympics come from too. And football is no different than that. So I think by selecting too early, too soon, that's where you experience a drop off too. There's very selected few and those might even drop off later on. But there are natural platforms where usually players make a decision. 13, 15 to 16, 18 and 19 are typical age groups where there's drop-offs in sports.
Yeah, awesome. All right, Kyle, this is your time.
Yep.
You're live.
All right. Thank you, man. Thank you for having Mr. Wall on the program. And hello to all the viewers and subscribers. My question to Mr. Wall is it's a hypothetical question. How would he revamp the schoolboy system to benefit the clubs and the schoolboy themselves to get a better product in Jamaican football?
So, revamping and looking at the school system in conjunction with club football. You have to take my sort of ignorance, but at the same time, I'm unbiased. That's probably the benefit I have. So here goes. For me, January to June is untapped months of competition.
Thank you.
Agreed? And
Agreed,
that means, yeah, so if we start using January and June, just by the simple ways of looking at the calendar, we can start actually expose the players on, you have to train consistently in order to achieve something. You have to earn your way into the team instead of, yo man, you're balla. And then all of a sudden you're great, you're awesome, you're the best in the world. You have to achieve that years and years before you actually get to where your dreams are. And hopefully, if you've not done it, you're at least raising the standard of the game. Because my fact would be that they go on and playing, even if it might be third tier, second tier, and so forth. You're raising the minimum standards across the board.
Right.
That's why US is consistently failing with their potential, for example.
So would you agree to like expanding the schoolboy time period for like 7 months instead of 3 months as they now have it?
I think the marriage between a club and a school has to exist, because what clubs has the benefit of from that they can only more care about the football, but obviously development of the person. Whereas clubs can be accredited to international tournaments where they can be more flexible and agile in a way. I think whereas the rest of the world exists in a more club-based game instead of a school-based game, I think it's more about accepting that you can all have the piece of the pie. It's about how we can share it in the best possible way.
All right. I hear you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Money, I got to run.
All right.
All right, cool.
Walk, my friend. All right.
All right, cool.
Walk in peace.
Yeah. All right. We have a next one here. This is Carlton out of Manchester, England. Manchester United fan. Oh, I lost that one. Oh, let's see if I can pick him up. This is Carlton, Manchester United fan calling from England. Let's see. I hope it. Yeah, you have to turn off. You have to turn off the show, Mr. Lovelace. Yes, go ahead. Good afternoon. Good morning. Well, no, good night. It's what? It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's yeah, man, 10 to 10 now. Yeah. Good evening to the coach and everyone that's watching. But what I want to ask the coach is, and say, he said everything that I listened to him, I agree with everything that he said. But what I want to say to him is, like, there's some school in Jamaica, when the kid leave school in Jamaica, finish with money in our Dakar Cup, loads of those talent just gone because the guys after school, no more football for them, especially the one them that live in the country areas. So I would like if he could get some good scout to go around and see if he to help him because he cannot done it by himself. Personally, I would like person like humans, man, to be a part of those issues. And I will always keep saying it. To be a part of those issues can go out and see talent. Because even Sentan, you same one can stay there and look at Ochi, Marcos, Firmcoat, and see corporate talent boy, because most of those kids when they leave school, they just leave. They're good talent. Then they just see they're driving taxi. They're doing all sorts of things. So these type of issue we have to try to get rid of in Jamaica first. And as where the coach said, you cannot compare so much different leagues at once. And as I said, I listened to him, and what he said, I agree with everything that he said. And we must start make some of these players swell them head too big, say they are that good, and then they just go up, and then that's where most of them get lost, as what the coach said. They get lost, they just phase out early.
Okay. All right. But what specific question you want the coach to answer?
All right. The specific one, what I would like him to answer is for him to really spot some talent from in this schoolboy season at early age. That's those kids. He could have them in a pool. That's those kids don't drop out the wayside and just gone. Have them into a pool, and they know that these kids, because you have some talent kid that no football play in those areas away from schoolboy. They do so far away from clubs.
Okay. So yeah. Did you get the question? So what is the question?
I get it.
Oh, yeah,
I kind of get it where you're at. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a simple answer, but yes, it has to happen on a multiple levels. And this is kind of like change is always hard, and people will not change unless if something happened to them or they start to think of it a different way. Schoolboy football is one of the means to actually scout and assess an ID talent. It's one, not the one. More further along, if education happens earlier, potentially that's why school exists, in order for us to actually get more things that so we can actually meet the world when we're adults and actually behaving as proper social good beings, right? Meaning, if we don't start early on educational within the football context, we're missing out. And the same thing when it comes to within the school system. That it has to happen on multiple levels. Scouting is a thing that's actually part of the talent ID program that's going to be rolled out no matter. That's going to be that we have to start build our own database and assessments so we can actually see talent not just earlier, but actually follow and monitor. Moreover, there has to be infrastructure as domestic competitions that can take care of late bloomers, players who are just recently fallen off, instead of feeling they go from level 5 to level 1 with an elevator, they're just falling off the staircase and they can take the step up again. Meaning there has to be a more fully embodying thing, let's just call it that that's just one thing. One thing is not going to save or recover or make an impact. It's going to be happen with a lot of things, and the devil is in the details.
Yeah. That answers the question.
Yeah, man. Very, very loud and clear.
All right.
Yeah. That's
man. All right, Sansen. Yeah, man. Enjoy the rest of the night.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, cool.
All right. I see
All the
Eagle
best.
Republic here. Yeah, yeah. We're going to close shortly. He says Jamaica needs a U21 league to act as a safety net between the schoolboy league and the football club. I think earlier you were speaking about how in Holland, and I'd love for some of you who have not probably watched everything to go and watch that. You said that in Holland, what they do is that 10% goes to the academy. So if you don't necessarily need, well, if the clubs have academies and this money is poured into the club and this 10% goes to the academy, then there can be an academy league where players at younger age can play. But I think in our context again, and context is important, at 21, if you're one of the elite players, you should be playing in the Premier League in Jamaica or be out of Jamaica because
Let's just hold that. I'm not going to be that definite because I've seen
yeah,
23-year-olds, 24-year-olds catching up, and
okay,
even
okay,
at 26. So, but we cannot base it on that. We
okay,
can just give examples like Ajax. They have Jong Ajax, meaning they're playing with their U21s in the regular level. They play in the second division in Holland. Jong Ajax, Jong PSV,
oh,
same kind of thing.
okay,
So you can either do that or you can have the U21 league, but where sometimes it just becomes a hole where they fill in and it always become as good as you do it. In order for a U21 or U20 league to become good, you need to also allow, like, let's say 3 elder players can actually go in and have
play in it.
playtime.
Yeah,
Correct? So
yes,
there will be actually, this is my game right now. This is where I can make myself go into the first team. And benchmark for a young player of 2021, are they taking in above 3,000 minutes on a yearly basis? Yes or no?
yeah.
In Jamaica right now, no. And you
Wow.
know what a Champions League player has to have done if they are actually able to make it into the Champions League? First team debut at 18. And that doesn't have
Yeah.
to be Premier League. It can be, yeah. But that's the benchmark for a Champions League player.
Yep. Yep. All right. So, all right. Good answer. All right. So let me take this one. This one says, "Good afternoon, coach and management. My question is about the CAC game. Is the coach responsible for the preparation of this tournament? And could we see any new players from England?"
Well, I'm not going to spill it up, but I can say yes, I'm responsible. I want to take ownership of the preparation, but it has to be in conjunction with more people, meaning that me and Hamer all agree on what we want, and there's other staff too, and players from England. I cannot answer to that right now. We'll leave it be because that has to be agreed upon too. But good
Yeah.
question from Reggae Boy Central.
Yes. All right. Listen, coach. It has been 2 hours, right? So it looked like you're able to
Have
keep
I
up with
beaten
the
them?
yeah, you still have that. You didn't be coach, yeah, right? You have like an hour to go. I think he did like four
Oh,
hours. He's
really?
yeah, you know what? Because he was right here beside me. But you have
Uh,
certainly passed Gumi. You have gone past Gumi, man. Gumi said that he could talk for the entire time, but he did like an hour and 30 minutes. And they said that I don't
there
know,
you
you
go.
won't talk a whole lot, but you have gone 2 hours, so that's good. Yeah, and they had a lot of
I'm
calls.
thankful. Really thankful for having me. I appreciate it, and I really gladly all those questions, and I like the fact that people were engaged. So I'm thankful.
Yeah, and we are thankful that you have come on and you have spoken. There's a whole lot that we can learn, we can take from this to just add value to our own personal lives. And for those of us who are involved in football, there are so many things that you have said, principles that you have shared that I think are very, important. The example, the Bermuda Triangle, the whole start small and spread wide instead of big and coming small. All of those things. are so important. Those 5 things are shared about, the data that is available, the context, the seeking references, those 5 things in terms of how you go about doing that. So there are so many different pointers that were there or highlighted. Just your overall view, the macro vision for the football, that's also important, and how that affects the micro, the smaller things, and the challenges that have to be overcome, the shifting in the culture and in the thinking, just changing from local to domestic. So there are so many nuggets that have been shared, that I think just generally as a society needs to go there, right? Just that, yeah, instead of talking about all that went wrong, let's talk about what went right. What can be made better. Yes, we can work on the communication. It's not me, it's we, right? And so all of those things I think are important, and I think they have, you know, touch a nerve with the persons who are watching. So I am grateful that you're here with us, and looking forward to great things with the U20, with the senior team, and with the talent identification. I think that is going to be massive for Jamaica's football. I know there are many persons out there, including like even Simon Preston, and you know who I know want to be just part of the process to add their value and contribution to the process. And yeah, I just know that
And
we
I
are.
and
Yeah,
it goes without saying that I need to give credit to those who have been passionate about
yeah,
putting Jamaica forward, spending their time without even looking at a dollar in front of them, just to drive the process forward. And none mentioned, but everyone mentioned in a way,
yeah,
that they should take credit. And what we have in front of us, let's make tomorrow better than, yeah, yesterday. That's all I can say. And that's my kind of creed for the whole thing.
yeah. So, Coach Wall, thank you so much. Hope that Jamaica gets to play Sweden in 2026 in the quarterfinals of the World Cup.
And we
Jamaica
will win it.
advance, Jamaica advances to the semi-final, having knocked out Sweden on penalties.
Oh, yeah.
Isak,
Even Sweden.
yeah, Isak missing, and then let's see who from Jamaica. Bobby Reed scoring the winner for Jamaica into the semifinals to take on the defending champions, Argentina.
That's some vision, but I buy
Hey, I'm
into it.
telling, well,
I can see it in
I
front of
thought
me right now.
somebody would tell me that that's a nightmare that I'm having. It's not even a dream. But thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure talking with you. Enjoy the rest of the evening, your time in Jamaica, and all the best as you head back to Sweden to come back again for the Gold Cup. Coach John Wall.
Yeah. Thank you. All the best, and thanks for all the work done on this podcast.
Wonderful. All right. All right. So there you go, people. That was Coach John Wall. Very informative. I ask you to clip, to take, to look, to go through, to listen again. Right? I always say this: we have one mouth and two ears because we're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak. So I challenge you to listen, not just hear, but listen. Take notes. You never know. Information is always to be treated like this. Sometimes you need it and you don't have it. So you must always make sure you have it just in case you need it. All right? Be My final encouragement to you is to be a submarine and not a ship, right? You know how a ship it is on the top of the surface, and when the winds and the waves come, it is tossed here, it is tossed there. A submarine go below 25 feet, and whatever is happening on the surface, it doesn't affect below 25 feet under the water. So sometimes you have to be, you know, just underneath the surface be strong, so that what is happening above the surface doesn't affect you. All right, so be a submarine today. Choose to go low, to live high. Because sometimes being up there on high, you can't deal with the currents that life brings. I am Man. This has been I Am Sure Sports. As usual, hit the like button, subscribe and share before you go. Have a wonderful rest of the day. As usual, when it gets to this point of the show, we say we are over and we are OUT out of here.
Boom, check it out. I don't know it's Jason. I'm here represent for I Am Sure Sports. For the latest news and updates, check out I Am Sure Sports. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel, subscribe and share. Jason representing I Am Sure. I Am Sure Sports.